My wife told me not to walk with her at the airport because I'd embarrass her in front of her rich friends. I nodded and walked away. 2 weeks later, when she returned, expecting everything to be the same, she discovered I dismantled her entire world piece by piece. This is how I did it. My name is Elias Vance. I'm 41 years old, and this is how one morning at Denver International Airport changed everything. Serafina was packing for her 2-week wellness retreat in Miami with Isabel and Charlotte, trust fund babies who measure their worth in Instagram followers. I've been funding her lifestyle blog for 3 years, watching our savings drain while she chased influencer dreams that never generated actual income. Our 8-year-old son, Finn, sat quietly eating cereal, watching his mother stuff designer clothes into Louis Vuitton luggage. The kid had learned not to ask for attention when Serafina focused on her phone. "Daddy, are you taking mommy to the airport?" Finn asked softly. "Of course, buddy," I replied, noticing how thin he gotten lately. The drive to DI was tense. Serafina spent 30 minutes coordinating outfits with her travel companions, treating me like hired transportation rather than her husband of 10 years. At the departure zone, I started unloading her bags when I saw them. Isabel and Charlotte stepping out of a black Mercedes like they were walking a red carpet. Both women wore designer everything, their appearance screaming money and status. Serafina immediately transformed, her voice becoming artificially bright as she waved at her friends. I'd watched this performance before the way she became someone else around these women. That's when it happened. "Elias," Serafina said quietly, pulling me aside. "Don't walk with me to check in. You'll embarrass me in front of Isabel and Charlotte." The words hit like a physical blow. After 10 years of marriage, after everything I'd sacrificed to support her dreams, she was embarrassed by me. "Excuse me," I said, certain I'd miss her. "They don't really know you, and it'll be awkward if you hang around. Just put the bags on the curb." I looked at her face and saw something I'd been refusing to acknowledge. This wasn't the woman I'd married. This was someone who saw me as a liability to be managed. I nodded slowly, set her luggage down, and walked back to my truck without another word. As I drove away, I watched in the rearview mirror as Serafina struggled with her heavy bags, too proud to call me back, but clearly needing help that her precious friends were too busy photographing themselves to provide. That 20-minute drive home gave me clarity. I've been missing for years. Serafina didn't want a husband. She wanted an invisible financial backer for her lifestyle fantasies. Time to give her exactly what she'd asked for. Walking back into our Aspen home felt like entering someone else's life. Everything looked the same. The designer furniture Serafina had chosen for maximum Instagram impact. The professional lighting she'd installed for her morning routine videos. The carefully arranged props that made our house feel more like a movie set than a home. But now I was seeing it all through different eyes. Finn was still at the kitchen counter working on homework with the kind of intense focus that seemed unusual for an 8-year-old when I sat down across from him with my coffee. I really looked at my son for the first time in weeks. "Hey buddy, are you okay? You seem pretty skinny lately." He shrugged without looking up from his math worksheet. "Mom says I need to watch what I eat because I look puffy in her photos." My blood went cold. What kind of things does she say about food? That pizza makes you bloated and bread makes you fat, and I should stick to salads and protein if I want to be healthy like her friends' kids. Our 8-year-old son was on a diet because my wife thought he looked chubby in her social media posts. The same woman who spent hundreds of dollars a month on organic supplements and wellness coaching for herself was restricting our child's nutrition for aesthetic reasons. "Finn, listen to me carefully," I said, keeping my voice calm. "You're a growing boy, and you're perfect exactly as you are. Tomorrow we're having pancakes for breakfast and pizza for lunch." "Okay." His face lit up like I just promised him Christmas. "Really? Mom won't be mad. Mom's not here. And when it comes to your health, Dad makes the decisions, too." That evening, after Finn went to bed, I did something I'd never done before. I went through Serafina's digital life systematically. Her laptop, her social media accounts, her private messages. What I found made me physically sick. Months of conversations with Isabel and Charlotte about Finn being difficult to manage and not photogenic enough for family content. Discussions about boarding schools that could provide structured environments for challenging children while giving parents freedom to focus on personal growth. But the real bombshell was hidden in her email drafts. A partially written message to an educational consultant about discrete placement options for gifted children whose home environment might benefit from professional structure. She was planning to send Finn away, not because he had behavioral problems or needed specialized education, but because an 8-year-old boy didn't fit her carefully curated online image. I kept digging and found financial records that made everything worse. Credit cards I didn't know existed with thousands of dollars in charges to wellness coaches, lifestyle consultants, and something called personal brand optimization services. Serafina had been secretly spending our money on consultants who were teaching her how to build a life that didn't include the inconvenient realities of motherhood and marriage. The final piece fell into a place when I found her search history. How to protect assets before divorce, custody arrangements that prioritize child welfare, building evidence of parental fitness. My wife wasn't just embarrassed by me and planning to exile her son. She was preparing to divorce me and position herself as the responsible parent while painting me as an obstacle to Finn's well-being. Tomorrow, I was calling Arthur Wells, my business partner and the closest thing I had to a brother. Then I was calling the best family attorney in Colorado. She'd underestimated the man she married. The next morning, I sat across from Arthur Wells at his kitchen table while Finn played video games in the living room. Arthur had been my business partner for 6 years and my closest friend even longer. He took one look at my face and poured 2 cups of black coffee without asking. "All right, Elias," Arthur said, settling into his chair. "You look like someone ran over your dog. What happened?" I told him everything. The airport humiliation, Finn's forced diet, the secret credit cards, the boarding school conversations I'd found in Serafina's messages. Arthur listened without interrupting, his expression growing darker with each revelation. "Elias, I've been your business partner for 6 years," Arthur said finally. "I've watched you build a company worth $12 million while that woman treated you like a personal bank account. But this thing with Finn, that's where it stops being about money and becomes about protecting your kid." "I know. I just don't know what to do about it." Arthur leaned forward. "Actually, you do. You're just scared to admit it because you're a decent guy who honors commitments. But Elias, she already broke the commitment when she decided your son was inconvenient for a brand." He was right. I'd been making excuses for Serafina's behavior for years, telling myself that marriage meant working through problems, but there was no working through this. She wanted to send Finn away so he wouldn't interfere with her Instagram aesthetic. "What's our company worth right now?" I asked. "About $12 million split between us." "Why?" "Because everything I own is going to be scrutinized in a divorce. I need to know where I stand." Arthur nodded slowly. "Smart thinking. But Elias, if you're really doing this, you need to be strategic. Document everything first. Get evidence of her spending, her plans for Finn, her priorities. Make sure you can prove she's an unfit mother." "Already started. Found her private messages about boarding school." "Good. What else?" I pulled out my phone and showed him the credit card statements. Arthur whistled low under his breath. $30,000 in 6 months on wellness coaches and lifestyle gurus, while putting your 8-year-old on a diet. Gets worse. She's been paying Charlotte for private health consultations. The same Charlotte who told her at the airport that I was authentically blue-collar like it was some kind of disease. Arthur finished his coffee and leaned back in his chair. "All right, here's what we're going to do. You're going to hire the best family attorney in Colorado, someone who specializes in high-net-worth divorces and understands business valuations. And you're going to start building a case that shows Finn belongs with his father. What about the company? We'll protect it. There are ways to structure things so your personal assets are separate from business assets. But Elias, you need to move fast. How long is she gone?" 10 more days. "Perfect. That gives us time to prepare everything before she gets back. By the time Serafina returns from her little vacation, you'll be 3 steps ahead of whatever sob story she tries to spin." For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe again. Arthur was right. I've been playing defense for too long. Time to go on offense. "One more thing," Arthur said as we stood to leave. Change all your passwords tonight. Bank accounts, email, everything. If she's been hiding credit cards from you, there's no telling what else she's been accessing without your knowledge. I shook my friend's hand, feeling more like myself than I had in years. Thanks, Arthur. I owe you one. You don't owe me anything, brother. Just get your son out of that toxic situation. That afternoon, I called Eleanor Reed, the best family law attorney in Denver. Her reputation for handling complex custody cases was legendary, and Arthur's lawyer had recommended her without hesitation. Mr. Vance, Eleanor said during our phone consultation, based on what you've told me, we need to move quickly but carefully. Can you be in my office tomorrow morning? The next day, I sat across from a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s who radiated competence and controlled aggression. Her corner office overlooked downtown Denver, and the walls were lined with awards and certificates that spoke to decades of successful litigation. Let me be direct, Eleanor said, reviewing the documents I brought. Your wife's documented plans to send Finn to boarding school for social media convenience, combined with the financial deception and child's dietary restrictions, paint a picture of parental neglect. But we need more evidence. What kind of evidence? Medical records showing Finn's weight loss. School counselor reports if he's mentioned any anxiety about food or home life. Documentation of her social media posts that exclude him or present false narratives about family life. I nodded, taking notes on my phone. What about the business? She'll try to claim half of everything. Not if we can prove it's separate property that predates the marriage and that she contributed nothing to its growth. Do you have employment records showing she's never worked for the company? She's never worked anywhere. The lifestyle blog doesn't generate income. It only spends money. Eleanor smiled grimly. Even better, we can argue that she's been living off her earnings while neglecting her primary responsibility as a mother. Colorado courts don't look kindly on parents who prioritize social media over child welfare. We spent 90 minutes mapping out strategy. Eleanor would file preliminary paperwork, but hold off on serving Serafina until after she returned. Meanwhile, I would document everything I could find about her spending, her plans for Finn, and any evidence of neglect. Mr. Vance, I have to ask, are you certain about this course of action? Divorce is expensive and emotionally draining, especially with a child involved. I thought about Finn sitting at the kitchen counter asking permission to eat lunch. I thought about Serafina discussing boarding schools with her friends like she was planning a vacation. Eleanor, my wife, told me not to walk with her at the airport because I'd embarrass her in front of her friends. That was the moment I realized she sees me as a liability instead of a partner. But the real problem isn't how she treats me. It's how she treats our son. Understood. One last thing. Do not let her know you're planning anything. Act normal when she returns. Let her think you've accepted her version of normal while we build our case. I left Eleanor's office feeling like I just declared war, which in a way I had. But this wasn't about revenge against Serafina. This was about protecting Finn from a mother who saw him as an obstacle to her online image. That evening, I called Finn's school and requested a meeting with his teacher and the school counselor. If Serafina had been affecting Finn's emotional well-being, there would be evidence of it in his behavior and academic performance. Time to gather ammunition for the fight of my life. The meeting with Finn's teacher and school counselor confirmed my worst fears. Ms. Davies, Finn's third-grade teacher, and Dr. Hayes, the school counselor, sat across from me in the small conference room with expressions that told me everything I needed to know. Mr. Vance, Ms. Davies began carefully. We've been documenting some concerning changes in Finn's behavior over the past few months. Dr. Hayes opened a thick folder. Finn's been asking permission to eat his lunch, which is unusual for children his age. He frequently asks if certain foods are bad or if eating them will make him puffy. These aren't typical concerns for 8-year-olds. My stomach clenched. What else have you noticed? He's lost weight. Ms. Davies continued. When we have class parties or celebrations with treats, Finn either refuses to participate or asks multiple times if it's okay to have a small piece of cake or a cookie. Dr. Hayes pulled out several drawings from Finn's art class. These family portraits are particularly telling. In every drawing from the past 2 months, Finn depicts himself as very small, often separated from the rest of the family. His mother appears distant or engaged with objects rather than people. I studied the drawings, my heart breaking with each one. In one picture, Finn had drawn himself tiny in the corner, while Serafina stood large in the center, holding what looked like a phone. I appear normal-sized, but separated from both of them. Has he mentioned anything about his home life? He talks about being excited for weekends with Dad, Ms. Davies said, but he's expressed anxiety about disappointing Mom. Last week, he told me he was practicing standing straighter for pictures. Dr. Hayes leaned forward. Mr. Vance, children his age should be focused on play, learning, and normal social development. The food anxiety and appearance concerns we're seeing are typically associated with much older children or those experiencing unusual pressure at home. What do you recommend? We're documenting everything in Finn's file. If legal proceedings become necessary, we're prepared to provide testimony about his emotional state and the changes we've observed. Ms. Davies nodded. We've also noticed that Finn seems more relaxed and confident on days when you're the one who drops him off or picks him up. His whole demeanor changes. After the meeting, I sat in my truck in the school parking lot reviewing the notes I'd taken. Every piece of evidence painted the same picture. Serafina was psychologically damaging our son for the sake of her online image. That evening, I called Arthur with an update. Elias, this is exactly what Eleanor needs to build a custody case. Arthur said, professional documentation of emotional neglect is gold in family court. I just can't believe it's gotten this bad. How did I miss it? Because you were working 80-hour weeks trying to provide for them while she was systematically undermining your kids' mental health. This isn't your fault, brother. Arthur was right. I'd been so focused on being a good provider that I'd failed to see what was happening right under my nose. What's the next step? Eleanor wants to meet with you and Finn together. She needs to assess his emotional state firsthand and document his relationship with both parents. The thought of putting Finn through a legal evaluation made me sick, but protecting him from further damage was more important than my discomfort. Schedule it. And Arthur, thank you for everything. That's what brothers are for. We're going to get Finn out of this situation. 3 days before Serafina's return, I made a discovery that changed everything. While organizing Finn's school papers, I found something that made my blood run cold. A permission slip for the school counselor to conduct ongoing emotional wellness assessments for Finn Vance. The form was dated 2 months ago and signed by Serafina. I immediately called Dr. Hayes at the school. Dr. Hayes, this is Elias Vance. I found a permission slip that my wife signed for ongoing assessments of Finn. Can you explain what this means? There was a long pause. Mr. Vance, your wife contacted us about concerns regarding Finn's behavior at home. She requested regular evaluations to document what she called concerning patterns. What kind of concerning patterns? According to Mrs. Vance, Finn has been showing signs of aggression, defiance, and emotional instability. She wanted professional documentation of these issues. My heart stopped. Dr. Hayes, you've been meeting with me about Finn's anxiety and food issues. Have you seen any signs of aggression or defiance? Absolutely not. Finn is one of our most well-behaved students. He's anxious and withdrawn, but never aggressive or defiant. The pieces clicked into place with horrifying clarity. Serafina hadn't just been planning to send Finn to boarding school. She'd been building a case to prove I was an unfit father. The emotional damage she was causing Finn was being documented as evidence of problems in my parenting. Dr. Hayes, I need copies of everything, every assessment, every note, every conversation with my wife. Mr. Vance, I think you should know that your wife has been asking very specific questions about Finn's relationship with you. She seemed particularly interested in documenting any signs that he might be better off in a more structured environment. I drove straight to Eleanor's office with a permission slip and my new understanding of Serafina's strategy. Eleanor read through everything with a focused intensity of a prosecutor building a case. Elias, this is attempted parental alienation, Eleanor said finally. She's been systematically damaging Finn's emotional health while positioning herself as the concerned parent seeking help for problems that don't exist. Can we prove that with Dr. Hayes' testimony? Absolutely. The school's records will show that Finn's anxiety correlates directly with his mother's increased focus on his appearance and behavior. Meanwhile, Her permission slip requests assessments for problems that no teacher or counselor has ever observed. Eleanor leaned back in her chair. Elias, I've seen some manipulative behavior in my career, but this is sociopathic. She's been gaslighting an 8-year-old child to build a custody case. What do we do now? We document everything and prepare for war. When Serafina returns, we let her think her plan is working while we build an airtight case for sole custody. By the time we're done, she'll be lucky to get supervised visitation. I left Eleanor's office feeling like I'd just discovered my wife was a stranger. The woman I married, the mother of my child, had been systematically abusing our son while planning to frame me as the problem. But now I knew the truth, and truth, backed by legal firepower, was about to set Finn free. The day before Serafina's scheduled return, Eleanor called with final instructions. Elias, when she arrives, act completely normal. Don't mention the attorney meetings, the school documentation, or any of our preparations. Let her think everything is exactly as she left it. What if she asks about Finn's behavior, or tries to discuss boarding school? Listen, document, but don't argue. We want her to reveal more of her strategy while we have everything recorded and witnessed. That evening, I sat Finn down for a conversation I've been dreading. Buddy, when Mom comes home tomorrow, things might feel a little different for a while, but I want you to know that no matter what happens, you're safe with me, okay? Finn looked up from his homework with those serious eyes that seemed too old for his 8-year-old face. Daddy, am I going to have to go to that school Mom talked about on the phone? My heart nearly stopped. You heard her talking about school. She was in the kitchen with a laptop. She said something about how kids like me do better in places with more structure and that you work too much to handle my problems. The casual way he repeated Serafina's manipulative language made me realize how much damage had already been done. She'd been conditioning him to believe he was problematic and that I was inadequate as a father. Finn, listen to me very carefully. You don't have problems that need fixing. You're a normal, healthy boy who deserves to eat pizza and play video games and not worry about whether you look right in pictures. And I don't work too much to take care of you. You're the most important thing in my life. Finn's eyes filled with tears. Really? Really? And we're going to make sure you never have to worry about being sent away again. The next afternoon, Serafina's Uber pulled into our driveway. I watched from the window as she emerged, looking perfectly put together in her coordinated travel outfit. Phone already in hand to document her return home. She walked through the front door with that bright smile she used for social media, arms spread wide for hugs that felt calculated rather than genuine. I'm home. Did you miss me? She called out cheerfully. Finn ran to her dutifully, but I noticed how he hesitated before the hug, how quickly he pulled away. Serafina noticed too, and I saw her expression shift slightly. Disappointment that he wasn't providing the emotional reunion she'd probably planned to film. How was your trip? I asked, keeping my voice neutral. Amazing. So transformative. I have so many new ideas for the blog, and Isabel and Charlotte introduced me to some incredible wellness professionals. We need to talk about some exciting opportunities. She was already back in performance mode, treating our family like props for her next content strategy. Where's my welcome home kiss? She asked, moving toward me with that practice smile. I gave her a brief, polite kiss on the cheek. She frowned slightly at the lack of enthusiasm, but quickly recovered. Finn, sweetheart, you look so much thinner. Have you been eating properly while Mommy was gone? The question was designed to sound caring, but I heard the underlying criticism of both Finn's appearance and my caretaking abilities. We've been eating great, I said before Finn could respond. Pancakes, pizza, ice cream, all his favorites. Serafina's smile became strained. Oh well, we'll need to get back to our healthy routine now that I'm home. The battle lines were drawn. Time to see how far she'd push her agenda now that she thought she was safely back in control. 3 days after Serafina's return, she made her move. I was in my home office when she knocked on the door, holding a manila folder and wearing the expression she used when delivering what she considered important news. Elias, we need to discuss Finn's future, she said, settling into the chair across from my desk. I've been thinking a lot during my trip, and I've made some decisions. What kind of decisions? She opened a folder and pulled out glossy brochures for expensive boarding schools. I've been researching educational opportunities that would be better suited to Finn's needs. These are some excellent institutions that specialize in helping children with behavioral and emotional challenges. I kept my voice steady. What behavioral and emotional challenges? Elias, surely you've noticed how anxious and withdrawn he's become. The school counselor has been documenting concerning patterns for months. Dr. Hayes thinks a more structured environment would help him develop better coping strategies. Every word was a lie, delivered with such conviction that I almost admired her sociopathic skill. She'd spent months creating the very problems she was now proposing to solve by sending our son away. Have you discussed this with Finn? Children his age aren't equipped to make these kinds of decisions. As his parents, we need to do what's best for his development, even if he doesn't understand it initially. She pulled out more documents, applications she'd already started filling out, financial aid forms, even a timeline for transitioning Finn to boarding school before the next academic year. Serafina, these schools cost $40,000 a year. How exactly are we supposed to afford that? The business is doing well, and this is an investment in our son's future. Besides, with Finn in a proper educational environment, I'll be free to focus more energy on growing my platform. The wellness space is exploding right now, and I have real opportunities to build something significant. There it was. The truth beneath all her concern about Finn's well-being. She wanted him gone so he wouldn't interfere with her influence or ambitions. What if I don't agree to this? Her expression hardened. Elias, I've been documenting everything. Finn's anxiety, his food issues, the way he responds to stress. I have professional assessments showing that our current situation isn't working. If you force me to, I'll petition the court for sole custody based on my evidence that you're unable to provide the stable environment no one needs. She thought she was delivering an ultimatum that would force my compliance. Instead, she just confessed to months of calculated child abuse while threatening to weaponize the damage she'd caused. I see, I said calmly. So, you're saying that if I don't agree to send Finn away, you'll try to prove I'm an unfit father? I'm saying that sometimes difficult decisions require legal intervention when parents can't agree on what's best for their child. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out a folder of my own. Serafina, before you go any further down this path, I think you should see something. I handed her copies of the school's real assessments, Eleanor's legal documents, and the permission slips she'd forged. I watched her face change as she realized her carefully constructed lies were unraveling. What is this? It's the truth about what you've been doing to Finn. About your plans to frame me about everything. Her mask finally slipped completely. You have no idea what you've done, Elias. I was trying to save this family. No, Serafina. I was. The custody hearing lasted 3 days, but the outcome was never really in doubt. Eleanor had built an airtight case documenting Serafina's systematic emotional abuse of Finn and her fraudulent attempt to frame me as an unfit father. Dr. Hayes testified about the forged permission slips and Serafina's false claims about Finn's behavior. Ms. Davies presented Finn's drawings and documented his dramatic improvement when away from his mother's influence. Child psychologist Dr. Elise Moreau explained how Serafina's food restrictions and appearance obsessions had created genuine anxiety disorders in an 8-year-old. Serafina's attorney tried to paint her as a concerned mother seeking help for a troubled child, but the evidence was overwhelming. The judge reviewed months of documentation showing how Finn's problems only existed in Serafina's reports, never in objective professional assessments. Mrs. Vance, Judge Beaumont said during his ruling, your actions constitute deliberate psychological manipulation of a minor child for personal gain. This court finds clear evidence of emotional abuse designed to support fraudulent custody. Claims. The final order granted me sole physical and legal custody of Finn. Serafina received supervised visitation rights contingent on completing parenting classes and psychological evaluation. She was also ordered to pay child support and cover Finn's therapy costs. Arthur was waiting outside the courthouse with Finn, who'd spent the hearing days with his business partner to avoid the courtroom drama. How'd it go, Daddy? Finn asked when I walked out. You're staying with me, buddy. Forever. Finn's smile was brighter than I'd seen in months. Can we get pizza to celebrate? We can get whatever you want. As we drove home, Finn asked the question I've been expecting. Daddy, will Mommy be okay? Mommy has some problems she needs to fix. But that's not your job to worry about. Your job is just to be a kid. I like being a kid with you better anyway. That evening, Serafina called to say goodbye before moving back to her parents' house in California. She'd lost her custody case. Her influencer career had collapsed under the scandal, and Isabel and Charlotte had ghosted her completely. Elias, I want you to know that I never meant to hurt Finn, she said. But you did hurt him, Serafina, for months. I know, and I'm going to get help to understand why I did those things. I hope you do. Finn deserves a mother who puts his needs first. After we hung up, Finn and I sat on the couch eating ice cream and watching cartoons. For the first time in over a year, my son looked completely relaxed. Daddy, I'm glad Mommy's getting help. But I'm also glad it's just us now. Me too, buddy. Me too. 6 months later, Finn and I had settled into a routine that felt natural rather than performed. No more ring lights at breakfast. No more anxiety about food choices. No more walking on eggshells around someone's fragile ego and endless content needs. Our Aspen house felt like a home again. I'd converted Serafina's former filming studio back into a proper guest room where Finn's friends could sleep over. The kitchen became a place for actual cooking rather than stage photos. We ate pancakes on weekdays, ordered pizza when we felt like it, and never once worried about whether our meals looked Instagram-worthy. Finn started therapy with Dr. Elise Moreau, who specialized in children recovering from emotional manipulation. The sessions helped him understand that his mother's behavior wasn't his fault and that normal families don't revolve around social media documentation. Mr. Vance, Dr. Moreau told me during one of our progress meetings, Finn is remarkably resilient. Children recover from this kind of psychological abuse much faster than adults, especially when they're in a stable, loving environment. How is he doing with the food anxiety? Almost completely resolved. He still occasionally asks permission for treats, but that's becoming rare. The fact that you consistently respond with patience and reassurance has been crucial to his recovery. My business partnership with Arthur grew stronger as I became more present in both work and parenting. With Serafina's chaos removed from our lives, I could focus on being the father Finn needed and the business partner Arthur deserved. Elias, you're a completely different person now, Arthur observed during one of our weekly planning meetings. More focused, more confident, more decisive. When you're not constantly managing someone else's emotional instability, you have energy for the things that actually matter. Speaking of things that matter, how's the dating situation? I laughed. Non-existent, and I'm fine with that. Finn and I are figuring out who we are as a family. Everything else can wait. Finn's progress was remarkable. His grades improved. He made new friends. And most importantly, he started acting like a normal 8-year-old boy. He played soccer without worrying about looking puffy in team photos. He ate birthday cake at parties without asking permission. He laughed loudly and unselfconsciously the way children should. One evening, while helping him with homework, Finn looked up from his math worksheet and asked a question that made my heart soar. Daddy, can we have friends over for my birthday party this year? Like a real party with games and cake and everything? Of course, buddy. What kind of party do you want? Just a fun one where kids can be loud and messy, and we don't have to worry about pictures. That weekend, we threw Finn the birthday party he'd always deserved. 10 kids running around our backyard playing games, eating too much cake, and making the kind of joyful noise that fills a house with life. No stage photos, no coordinated outfits, no performance anxiety, just childhood, pure and unfiltered. As I watched Finn blow out his candles, surrounded by friends who liked him for who he was rather than how he looked in photos, I realized something important. Serafina had wanted to create the perfect family for social media. Instead, Finn and I were living our imperfect, authentic life in peace. And that was more than enough.